I'm not sure if I should be worrying about the door in my living room by Social Contract Lawyer. I'm not in any danger, I think. I've been living in this old house for half a year now. It's in good condition, just needed a few repairs here and there. Everything is arranged how I like it. There's an ornate wooden door in the living room, all carved in floral designs with an equally intricately carved frame. Polished, lovely, shiny brass knob. Currently, I have a heavy bookshelf set in front of it, but before that I left it clear of any furniture as I hope to figure out how to open it at some point without ruining the beautiful wood. You see, it was locked when I moved in. Well, I don't know if it was locked or jammed or what, but the knob simply wouldn't turn. There's no keyhole or anything, and the space it should lead to is about as big as a large closet or small storage room. I'm not in want to space. The house is fairly spacious itself, so it wasn't an urgent matter for me to get it open. So it remained closed. Every once in a while, I'd jiggle the knob as if to get a clue as to what was wrong with it. The knob barely gave it all, neither right nor left. And then one Friday night, about a couple of months into living at the place, I went to the living room from the kitchen with snacks and a bottle of whiskey to chill for the evening, set everything down, and jiggled the doorknob out of habit. My hand flew off it as if I had accidentally brushed it against a spider, the knob clicking back into place. I stood there staring at the door for what must have been an hour, my eyes slowly probing the polished wood. It occurred to me then that I never really thought about what I expected to find inside. I suppose I had thought it was empty or contained only junk and had just gotten jammed shut. When I mustered the nerve to turn the knob again, I pushed it open a little. The door wasn't quite as heavy as it looked. Inside, I could only make out darkness. I pushed it all the way open and felt around on the wall inside for a light switch. There was one right by the door. Though it was just as bright as any other light in the house, it took me quite a while to register what I was looking at. When I decided I was dreaming, I brought myself to admit that it looked like I had just walked into my entryway. I stuffed one of my slippers under the door to keep it open and stepped back to look down the hall to my actual entryway and actual front door, then turned back to the room. A coat was on the hook and a pair of shoes were on the floor that I didn't recognize but were similar to my own. I stepped inside and carefully traversed the short hallway. I reached into the doorway of the kitchen, which is just where I expected it to be located, and turned on the light. I looked around slowly. Things weren't quite where I left them, but my ladles and spatulas and pots were hung more or less where they usually were. One or two I didn't recognize were among them. A few I expected to see were missing. I opened the cabinets. It wasn't my current stock, but it was stuff I would buy. There were even a few bags of the same salt and vinegar potato chips I had just been about to eat in my living room before I walked into this weird dream. Same story in the refrigerator. I checked the booze cabinet, my favorites, more than I usually keep. There were some prescription bottles on the counter. I pinched my arm and slapped myself in the face. I audibly muttered, "Shit," but quickly shut up when I realized how quiet the house was. I whirled around toward the hallway again. Not that I'd heard anything. I was just afraid I'd encounter whoever was trying to recreate my house for seemingly no reason. I crept back into the hallway and looked back at the door, still propped open. My living room, the real one, seemed more inviting than ever, and I was considering retreating back home and closing the door and blocking it with several pieces of furniture and getting back to my evening and forgetting this ever happened. But at the same time, I was curious about what the hell was going on. I was actually kind of pissed. There was no possible way this secret second house could exist. Where I was standing right now was where my real guest bedroom would have been located in space. The more I thought about it, the more frustrated and terrified I became. I shifted my attention to the other end of the hall, where my dark second living room was located. I practically ran into it and slapped the light switch, like a scared little kid venturing out of her bedroom to the bathroom at night. I found my own living room, arranged more or less like it was now, with a different television set and a different sofa, more books on the bookshelf among spines I recognized. My recliner was slightly to the right of where it really was, closer to the big window. Same curtains. And as you're probably wondering, yes, the door was in this living room too, but the heavy bookshelf was set in front of it, such that I couldn't even reach behind it to get at the knob. Before I could look any closer at anything, I went to the window and swept the curtain aside. Blackness. Granted, it was nighttime, but I do have neighbors less than a mile away who wouldn't yet have their lights out at this time, and the lights in town should have been visible in the distance. It was like I was staring at a wall painted black. I was also sure I had seen a full moon on my way home from the liquor store. This was somehow freakier than anything else I had seen thus far, though I'm not sure what else I was supposed to expect to be out there. I moved on, padding along more quickly, my steps as light as I could manage. I passed the bookshelves and flicked on the light of the hallway that led to the stairs. Almost identical to mine. I didn't look that closely, but from what I saw, there wasn't anything significantly different among the pictures of my late husband's paintings on the walls on either side. I peeked into the guest room, finding it full of junk, piled on the empty dresser and unused bed. Some of it I recognized as mine, but not all of it. Whatever. I went up the stairs. I could see the bathroom door at the top was open, but dark. I turned on the light to see towels and dirty clothes strewn around, about as much clutter as I could usually stand in a room I used daily. Pitch black out the small window. The toiletries were not what was in my real bathroom right now, different brands and all. I picked up the toothpaste tube from the vanity and looked closely at it and tried reading the brand name, then the instructions and warnings on the back. And suddenly everything made sense. I was having a stroke and stumbling around my own house, thinking I was somewhere else. I couldn't read it. It was like the text was made of shapes that only looked enough like Latin letters to fool a casual observer. It didn't say anything at all. I dropped the toothpaste and immediately started testing myself physically, trying to lift both my arms at the same time, smiling in the mirror. I could move just fine. I stood there staring at myself. The words, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" stopped in my throat. But I remained convinced of the current theory, that I was having a stroke. I went back downstairs and picked a book from my collection of them, one I recognized. I could read the title and author on the cover, Histories by Herodotus. But I opened it and flipped through it and looked closely, and I couldn't read any of it. I leafed and leafed through until a single coherent sentence jumped out at me. In peace, sons bury their fathers, and in war, fathers bury their sons. I slapped the book shut and glared at the spines of the other books, and I could only read a few of the titles. Just the well-read ones like the Bible and Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan and Plutarch's Lives and a trashy romance novel that's too obscure to name for you. Also, I'm embarrassed I've read it more than once. And I flipped through them and only caught little sentences I knew well. All the rest just lettering and markings. I went back to the kitchen and looked closely at the packaging of a bag of potato chips. Gibberish, like an alien language. I could sort of read the brand name, but knew the font was a little wrong. I couldn't read the names of the prescription boxes on the counter. I thought to go upstairs to the bedroom and look in the bedside drawer for the old letters my husband wrote to me long ago, to see if they were readable. I ascended the stairs again and dared to look at the photos on either side of me and saw his face, and my own face, clear as day, even though the other faces were a bit blurry, and the stars in the night sky in his best painting, a tiny little oil painting, were not quite arranged as they really were. And I reached the top of the stairs and turned towards the closed bedroom door. I was so focused on the thought of the letters that I opened the door without hesitation and flicked on the light. Now, I know what you're probably thinking I saw in there. Another me, right? I didn't have the light on for more than a few seconds before I flicked it off again, backed away toward the stairs, descended them, scurried to the door, pulled my slipper out from beneath it, and let it close. It was my bedroom, and there was my favorite whiskey on the bedside table, and my bed, and there was someone sleeping in it, under the duvet. But it wasn't me. I know because they were too big to be me, and a mess of silver hair was peeking out from under the blankets. I paced around my living room with histories open in my hand. Coherent. That ruled out a stroke. I stopped and tapped the knob of that door as if it were white hot, then tried to turn it. It was locked. I kept the doors way clear for the next week or so, occasionally mustering the nerve to try to turn the knob again. Locked. Jammed. Sometimes I'd try to get a look underneath it. I had left all the lights on after all. Darkness. But the knowledge of what was in there and that someone else lived in there, and, worst of all, that this was the front door of their house. I couldn't live with seeing it every day. Afraid the resident was going to open it and walk in. Afraid that whatever unlocked the door was going to unlock it again. So I hauled my heaviest bookshelf over and pushed it against the door. And I sit in my recliner with my booze and snacks and watch TV every evening and pretend it's not there. I haven't heard a sound coming from it, so I'm staying in this house. I don't think I have anything to worry about. If you folks enjoyed the story, please consider subscribing and sharing it with your friends that might enjoy this as well. Who do you think was in that bed? What do you think she saw? Was it a clone of herself in a different reality? Or a completely different person? Until next time, stay frosty. I don't know why I fucking just said that.